So it's gonna be the Roi Mata. So I'll take a couple of minutes.
No
Is that
problem.
right?
Yeah.
You tell me you're ready, then.
Yeah, I'm already filming, but I'm gonna get comfortable. Okay.
Okay, the story of Roi Mata. Roi Mata is one of the main figures here in Vanuatu. It's the one that we usually say that is the main equation of the civilization in Vanuatu, modernization. So Roi Mata around 1600, he was on this island, and he was a chief from a village called Mangas. And by living at Mangas, when in the very beginning, when he was raised at Mangas, he was raised with all his cousins, all his sisters, brothers, all his colleagues at Mangas village. When they grow up, his father was the big paramount chief of that tribe. And after when he succeeded his father and become the big chief of Mangas, he appointed one of his cousins by the name of Roi Muri. And Roi Muri was qualified to become the great leader of his warriors since he was grow up physically, even spiritually as well, since all his ancestors always guide him to become the great leader of his warriors. So after when he appointed Roi Muri to become his great leader of his warriors, they come up with the idea to stop cannibalism and tribal war on the island. And the only way to stop that is fighting against other tribes. So tribal war. They went fighting until he find out after that the only way to stop cannibalism and tribal war, it's not to fight, but mainly to communicate to those tribes and say, you don't need to be our enemy. You don't need to fight against us. You don't need to be, you don't need to hit us because we same species. So you can go hunting, you can go fishing, you can grow your own fruit and veggies, you can live peacefully, and we can enjoy that in our tribe as well. So the only problem that time is there was no common language to understand each other. So Roi Mata introduced the system of sand drawing. He drew on the sand like this, and he start to draw, and by drawing on the sand, he's trying to communicate with those tribes. And then people who agree to his idea, they always follow him. And then at the end to spread out that good news to other tribes as well. And then they always went to those tribes by bringing the Saget fern leaf, which is the symbol of peace, to stop all the worries and let them mainly to their tribe. Then at the end, he conquered the island by stopping cannibalism and tribal war. And to celebrate that big victory, they went to his own tribe at Mangas and prepared a big feast. And he named that big feast Natamate. Natamate, it means the sea is quiet, referring to one of the beautiful harbor they call Havana Harbor that used to be the Second World War naval base. And he said that Natamate, which just means the sea is quiet, referring to that harbor. And then it means as well that there'll be no more cannibalism and no more tribal war. Then after that, he welcomed people from each tribe and say, come on my feast. I welcome you all to celebrate that. But the only thing I want to ask you is you bring one item with you. And that item that you're gonna bring with you will be what you harvest the most during that season. So each tribe came to that feast with their own items. For those who come with the same item, for example, each tribe that brought pigs, he grouped them all and say, you now become same clan. Your totem will be pig. Those who come with coconut, he do the same thing with them as well. After regroup them in each clan, and then he says, for you that you come on the same clan, you don't have to marry women or men from the same clan you are. Marry mainly those who come from another clan. So consider your people around you on the same clan as your father, as your mom, as your uncle, as your auntie, as your brothers and sisters. And each time, if one of the member of clan wants to display custom ceremony like Tauri, then all the member of clan will contribute and help. and that'll be the same with others as well. So people, when they hear about that, they find out that he must be a very good chief. So during that time, a man, to be a man, like a real man, he has to have women and he has to have pigs. The more women you have, the more pigs you have, you become a ranked man during that time. So to regard that the chief will become the big paramount chief of the island, they give him wives, women. Each tribe give it to him one woman, and after giving one woman, they add big tusk on his hand, like a wedding ring back then. So they add big tusk, and he got like more than big tusk here, more than 10 big tusk on the other side, plenty of wives. So he took all his wife and then wants to spend the rest of his life in his kingdom at Mangas. And then before, at the end of the celebration, he told to those people from each other tribes and say, you can go back, but just note that once you'll be back, if you want to mobilize to other places, go by yourself. You don't need to be escorted by your warrior. Show to the people that the island is pretty safe for you. And it'll be also a good example for other islands, so we can do trade between us. And then people, when they went back to their tribe, the only thing is, some of the chiefs, when they want to mobilize visiting other tribes, they always get escorted by their warriors. Since back then, it's hard to believe that the island is safe. And then the chief Roi Mata doesn't like that. But since it's so good with people, he doesn't want to punish them. So he wants to show them a good example. What he did is, one day when they made a big feast on an island called Lelepa, just across from where he lives in his kingdom, it's a small island called Lelepa, he went there by himself with his own canoe, paddling by himself to that feast. When he get there, some of the people, they are a bit jealous against him. They put poison on his food. After, when he finished his meal, he feel that his body is not normal. So he walked down to the beach and he fall there in the beach, and some of the guards that look after the canoes belongs to the chiefs. They saw him, but they didn't recognize him. When they go closer and find out that he's a big paramount chief. So they took him, they escort him from Lelepa Island to his village, Mangas. When they reach Mangas, all his sorcerers, they come over to cure him, to remove that poison, but it was a bit too late. So the poison went all around in his system, and then he knew that they're gonna die. So by looking at all these people around him, he feel a bit shame. He's a bit shy, and then he told to his counselors and say, please take me to a place, an isolated place, so I can die in peace. I don't want to see my people look at me dying here in my kingdom. So they took him from Mangas back to Lelepa, where they poisoned him in a big cave called Felis Cave. They lay him down like a normal dead body, but he wasn't dead yet. He was laying down, and then he really wanted to see his home village, Mangas. So he told to his powerful magic man to make sure that he can lay down, but also look at his village, Mangas. So his powerful magic man took his oaken stick, he knocked on the soil comes up on the surface. Even nowadays, he can go and then see that. You can notice how level soil comes up. So you can still lay down and look at his own village. He was laying down and look at Mangas, and he told to all his counselors and say, after, when I'm gonna die, I want you to bury me in a place that you will place that place as a taboo place. No one can come and see me, even you guys. Then they choose one of the small island called Eretoka. That's the native name of that island. Nowadays, everybody call it Hat Island, since during Second World War, the Americans bombed it, because at night time they look at it and thought that it was the Japanese submarine. So they bomb it until find out after it's an island. So they don't want to call it Submarine Island, but Hat Island. So that time they choose that island to bury him, since there was no people on that island. So after, when he died inside the Felis Cave, they took his body back to Mangas. When they get to Mangas, there they lay him down in his big house, and then they share the funeral. All people all over this island, they all mobilize to Mangas, his village. And they brought some very valuable items. Like some of the tribes, they brought pig tusk. Some people they brought shark teeth, whale jaw, shells that they make necklaces. Those are some of the valuable items. Mats, they're some of the valuable items. They brought them to the funeral. With a number of those items, with a number of peoples that they want to follow his dead body to the burial site, it was a bit too much compared with the number of canoes that they have them back then. It's hard to build canoes. So the powerful magic man took his oaken stick, he knocked on the sea was open. That's the part of the story that most people didn't believe in, but it was real. And there's evidence that's still there until nowadays. It was a big creek. The sea was open. Nowadays, from there to that island where they buried him, it's still big creek. So they took his body with all those valuable items, and all those people, they follow his dead body and they walk across to Hat Island. When they get at Hat Island, they stay there for a week. Well, the history say they stay for a couple of days. They stay there, they dig a big hole. In the burial site, there was two different layers. The first layer in the bottom, they placed the chief body, Roi Mata. On his left hand side, they placed the oldest wife. On the right hand side, the virgin wife, younger wife. Underneath his legs, all his sorcerers. Those sorcerers, they say they feel guilty for his death. They say they should cure, they remove that poison earlier. They feel guilty for that and say it's an honor to get buried alive with that good chief, their chief. Those two wives, it's a must back then. It's an obligation to get buried alive with their husband, the big paramount chief. So those two wives, they were tied up towards his body. That's why nowadays when you Google on internet, those two wives, they kneel down towards him because they were struggling to escape during that time. On top of his head, a pig. They bury a pig. And the pig, in their belief back then, pigs is the guarantee for the next world after the death. So they buried that pig on top of his head. Couple of days later, all these people from Mangas, they took all the babies and give it to the extended family from Lelepa Island and say, keep them alive. We're gonna follow our chief. They were jumped in, not by force. They say it's an honor to get buried alive with their good chief. They don't need other chief. They were jumped in. Even other people from other tribes, that they feel that, yeah, it's an honor to get buried alive with him so they can follow his soul as well, to go to the next world after the death guaranteed by the pig. They were jumped in too. They say we don't need other chiefs. Everybody get buried alive. Only the chief that is dead, but otherwise the rest are all buried alive. So that place was placed as a taboo island. No one goes there anymore. Until, in 1967, one of the French archaeologists, well, after French, they came over after 1906, when our country became a condominium country with both governments. Well, one of the French archaeologists by the name of José Garonga, in French they might call it José Garanger, is the one that came over and then very passionate about the Roi Mata's history. He really wanted to prove it, that is a real story. And he came and he went to that side of that island and asked people to take him to Hat Island, but people, they say, whoa, it's a taboo land. No one, even us, can go there. So he went back to Port Vila, at the capital city, and then he asked to the National Council of all the chiefs around Vanuatu, called the Malfatu Maori National Council of Chiefs. He asked them permission, and then they say, well, since it's hard for you to go there and then you come and ask us, we have to prove in the world that, yeah, there's something happening here back then. So you can go. You can go and prove that that is a real story, but not a legend or not a fake story. So he went there with all his colleagues. When they reached Hat Island at the burial site, they start digging. Just about few centimeters. Luckily, there was no pig, no dogs, nothing in there. Luckily. Just after a few centimeters, they found fingers, skeletons with different positions that they looks like they really want to go out when they bury them. And it proved after that, yeah, they were buried alive. But it doesn't prove that it was a real story, since he found the layer, the top layer, but not the bottom layer where the chief is. Because he has to prove that he's a burial site by proving the pig tusk on his both hands, because the only one that has more wives, more pig tusk in Vanuatu history. So he went and displayed a big custom ceremony to the locals from there, and then they reveal him the real story and say, dig further in the bottom. Firstly, you'll find pig. Secondly, it'll be him with his two wives. Thirdly, sorceress underneath his both legs. When he started digging further, he found the pig, the chief, the two wives, sorceress, and to prove that it was real, it was the burial site, or it was him, he found those pig tusks on his both hands. And also proving that as well, that he was laying down like a normal dead body, not struggling to survive. So after proving that, since from 1967, they're trying to evaluate his history with some of the items that they found them there at the original village, and also where he died, and also on that burial site, even around the island, with all the little small islands around this island. After evaluate that from 1967 till 2008, recently, UNESCO proved that and become nowadays, since 2008, the first World Heritage Site here in Vanuatu. And then secondly, the sand drawing become the second heritage here in Vanuatu. And that's the end of my story. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.